Now, the Metropolitan Police has been defending its handling of the Euro 2020 final and says its intervention prevented a further escalation of violence. The Football Association has launched a review into what it's calling unprecedented levels of public disorder, which could see England fans banned from future games. But should there be further action? Joining me now is Julian Knight. He's the chair of the Digital Culture, Media and Sport Select Committee, who's been writing to the FA today. Thanks for being with us. Some of the stories that are emerging on social media and have been over the last couple of days, certainly in messages I've been getting from people who were there, it does seem the scale and the toxic nature of what happened there was worse than thought, as were the security failures.
Yeah, I think it was appalling and shaming. The truth of the matter is that, I was getting texts on the night about what was happening and from volunteers. And I think it's been a cataclysmic failing of security around the ground, even against normal standards, but it's even made more acute as we're going through a global pandemic. And you would think that in such a situation that there would be halt points along the way to Wembley, and that, frankly, there would be much better organisation and stewarding of those who are trying to get into the ground.
Right. So what are the So what are the specific questions you want answered by the FA?
Well, we'd like to know how many people got into the ground, ticketless. A good estimate of that. We're hearing could be up to 5,000. Extraordinary numbers. We want to find out as well why it is that no lessons were learned from the Champions League final in 2011, when several hundred Manchester United supporters and Barcelona supporters broke in similar but in a less dramatic fashion. And also we'd like to see precisely what security was in place, what conversations were had with the police, what COVID security was in place, and why was it that people were allowed to get right up to the stadium without having their tickets properly checked. I've been to quite a few of these events as we've started. I was in Wimbledon that day. And at all of them, there was these halt points on the way to the stadium. And that doesn't seem to have happened this time.
I mean, UEFA are also investigating, but where do you think responsibility lies? The FA seem to be saying they were responsible for inside the stadium, and they say that it was the police outside. Where do you think responsibility lies? I mean, obviously, clearly, I've got to say, clearly,
things to get right.
No, well, clearly, responsibility lies with those guys forcing their way into Wembley. That's the first thing to say.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I certainly hope that some of them, particularly those who have been posting on social media, go and knock at the door from the police forthwith. But yeah, the FA has three things to get right in this country. First, the grassroots football, the England team itself, and Wembley Stadium. And I'm afraid they have failed on that final point. And the not me gov type approach that they initially took once this story emerged is just not good enough. You know, there were 30 police officers who were injured on this occasion, so I'm not going to castigate the police in any way. But what I would say, very simply when it comes to the FA, they had this happen before. They should have learned the lessons. They should know that this would be a hugely in-demand game. And frankly, this has a huge impact in terms of our World Cup bid and in terms of our relationship with UEFA.
Well, I was going to ask you about that. I mean, this trouble, coupled with the racism issue, where does that leave the bid for 2030? Yeah,
and also the booing of national anthems, which I think any normal person would say was not funny at all and pretty shameful, actually. I think I hate to say dead in the water, but I was not optimistic beforehand because, frankly, we don't have a good reputation within the wider football community. And also, I do wonder whether or not FIFA is thoroughly reformed. But UEFA, and we need the backing of UEFA in order to even enter the World Cup competition, they have the option of either Spain or Portugal or ourselves. And frankly, after this performance, I think it's much more likely they'll go for Spain and Portugal rather than us.
Right, so you say that any possible World Cup bid is effectively dead in the water. And would you suggest that the FA or the government just didn't bid now?
I think that the process is expensive, and we were humiliated last time. I think we were the only country that voted for ourselves. And I really do hope that there is real thought exactly what we actually do in terms of the World Cup bid. One other thing I'd like to mention, though, Mark, is it is more than, frankly, World Cups and that sort of thing. This is actually about safety. I was listening to some of the stories coming out of this, the crush, things like that. It was awfully reminiscent of the Hillsborough and Ibrox Stadium disasters. And we cannot have that happen again in this country. We just cannot. So what we've got to do, first of all, before we think about any World Cup bids, is sort this out and know exactly what went wrong and ensure that something like this never happens again.
Isn't the great shame that we've got a team and a manager who have done so much to, he's produced a diverse, socially aware team that's done very well, and then we're saying, well, let's not bid for 2030 because, the fans are going to ruin it and the racists are going to ruin it.
Well, I wouldn't put it quite like that. What I'd say, first of all, is, Gareth Southgate, hopefully at some point he may even be Sir Gareth Southgate, has been a fantastic example to us all. I mean, the way he talks is really inspiring. You can see it in his young team, absolutely brilliant. I'm really proud of what they've done. Some mindless idiots, and it seems to be a few thousand mindless idiots, have ruined a lot for a lot of people, a lot of people's fun. And that is wrong in itself. It doesn't mean that, frankly, we need to basically wear a hair shirt and never actually even consider a bid going forwards. But we do need to understand where we sit in the football hierarchy globally and not kid ourselves. We're not liked by the majority of football nations for historic reasons, for many reasons. And then basically what we have done to those who say that we shouldn't actually have a World Cup, it is give them ammunition, if you like. Because the one thing we always could say to them was, OK, we have the stadiums and we can run it. And unfortunately, that unique selling point doesn't look much of a selling point any longer.
No, it doesn't. It's all pretty depressing. Julian Knight, thanks very much. Appreciate your time.